he dated Raymond Burr in secret. Now, we know the reason why. James Stewart was born. James Madeline Stewart on May 20th, 1908, in the small town of Indiana, Pennsylvania. Stewart grew up in a close-knit middle-class family that instilled in him a strong sense of morality, humility, and civic responsibility. His father owned a hardware store, and young Jimmy was expected to inherit the family business. Instead, his life would take a very different path, one that would ultimately leave an indelible mark on film history. Stewart was an intelligent and thoughtful young man, excelling academically and musically. He attended Princeton University, where he studied architecture and developed a lifelong love of music, particularly the accordion. It was at Princeton that he discovered acting, joining the Triangle Club, a renowned theatrical organization. Although acting was not initially his intended profession, Stewart's natural stage presence, lanky charm, and unassuming sincerity quickly set him apart. After graduating in 1932, he moved to New York City, where he shared an apartment with fellow aspiring actors Henry Fonda and Joshua Logan, an arrangement that would become legendary in Hollywood lore. His early career was built in theater, but Stewart soon transitioned to film, signing with MGM in the mid-1930s. Unlike the polished, larger-than-life stars of the era, Stewart possessed an everyman quality that audiences found immediately relatable. His hesitant speech, gentle demeanor, and expressive vulnerability stood in stark contrast to the dominant masculine archetypes of the time. Yet beneath this apparent awkwardness was a profound emotional depth that allowed him to portray complex, morally conflicted characters with remarkable authenticity. Stewart's breakthrough came with films such as Mr. Smith Goes to Washington 1939, directed by Frank Capra. In the role of Jefferson Smith, Stewart delivered a performance that embodied idealism, moral courage, and democratic faith. His portrayal of a naive yet principled senator standing up against corruption resonated deeply with audiences on the eve of World War II. The film cemented Stewart's status as a major star and established his enduring screen persona. The honest man battling overwhelming odds with nothing but conviction and integrity. In 1941, Stewart won the Academy Award for Best Actor for The Philadelphia Story, a performance that showcased his versatility and impeccable timing. Playing opposite Katharine Hepburn and Cary Grant, Stewart balanced wit, vulnerability, and emotional intelligence, proving that his appeal extended well beyond earnest idealism. That same year, at the height of his fame, Stewart made a decision that would forever define his character off-screen. Following the attack on Pearl Harbor, James Stewart enlisted in the United States Army Air Forces, becoming the first major Hollywood star to do so. He served with distinction as a bomber pilot and later as a commanding officer, flying combat missions over Nazi-occupied Europe. Stewart's military service was not symbolic. It was dangerous, demanding, and deeply personal. By the end of the war, he had risen to the rank of colonel and earned numerous commendations for bravery. The experience profoundly affected him both emotionally and artistically, adding layers of gravity and realism to his later performances. When Stewart returned to Hollywood after the war, his screen persona evolved. The cheerful idealist gave way to more troubled, introspective characters. Nowhere was this transformation more evident than in It's a Wonderful Life, 1946. As George Bailey, Stewart delivered one of the most emotionally raw performances in film history. His portrayal of a man crushed by responsibility, regret, and despair revealed a depth of vulnerability rarely seen in male leads of the era. Although the film was not an immediate success, it would eventually become one of the most beloved and enduring classics of all time, cementing Stewart's legacy as an actor capable of profound emotional truth. The 1950s marked one of the most remarkable chapters of Stewart's career through his collaborations with director Alfred Hitchcock. Films such as Rear Window, Vertigo, Rope, and The Man Who Knew Too Much redefined Stewart's image once again. No longer merely the embodiment of virtue, he now portrayed obsessive, morally ambiguous, and psychologically complex men. In Vertigo, widely regarded as one of the greatest films ever made, Stewart's performance, as a man consumed by obsession and illusion, remains haunting, daring, and ahead of its time. These roles revealed Stewart's fearless commitment to artistic growth and his willingness to challenge audience expectations. Beyond suspense, Stewart excelled in westerns, bringing intelligence and emotional nuance to a genre often defined by stoicism. Films such as Winchester 73, The Man from Laram, and The Naked Spur presented heroes marked by inner conflict, grief, and moral struggle. Stewart's Western characters were not invincible gunslingers, but wounded men seeking justice or redemption, reflecting a more mature and introspective vision of American heroism. In his later years, Stewart continued acting selectively, lending his unmistakable voice and dignified presence to films that benefited from his grades. Honors poured in, including an Honorary Academy Award in 1985 and the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1985, recognizing not only his artistic achievements, but his service to the nation and enduring moral influence. James Stewart's romantic life has long fascinated admirers, in part because it stood in such contrast to the whirlwind of publicity that surrounded many of his Hollywood contemporaries. During his younger years, Stewart was frequently linked both by the studio publicity machines and by gossip columnists to a number of prominent actresses. As one of the most handsome, courteous, and bankable leading men of the 1930s and 1940s, he was a natural subject of speculation. His quiet charm, lanky good looks, and unassuming manner made him irresistible to audiences, and studios were eager to pair him romantically with many of the era's biggest female stars. Names were floated in the press. Photographs appeared of Stewart escorting glamorous actresses to premieres or social events, and rumors abounded about possible engagements that never materialized. Yet despite all the attention, Stewart remained notably private and cautious about his personal life. Unlike many stars of his generation who married young or repeatedly, he seemed in no hurry to settle down. Friends and colleagues often remarked on his old-fashioned values and his desire for a stable, meaningful relationship rather than a marriage of convenience or publicity. He dated certainly, but he resisted the pressure to marry simply to satisfy Hollywood expectations. This reluctance only fueled public curiosity, and as the years passed, Stewart gained a reputation as one of Hollywood's most eligible bachelors. By the time he reached his late 30s, his unmarried status had become almost as famous as his film roles, prompting endless speculation about why such a beloved star remained single. Stewart did not marry until the age of 41, a decision that reflected both his personal convictions and his readiness for the responsibilities of family life. When he finally did choose a partner, it was clear that this was not a fleeting romance, but a deeply considered commitment. In 1949, he married Gloria Hattrich-Mlan, a former model and divorce, who brought a sense of maturity and elegance into his life. Gloria was known for her intelligence, poise, and strong personality, qualities that complemented Stewart's gentle, thoughtful nature. Their relationship was grounded not in Hollywood glamour, but in mutual respect, affection, and shared values, and it quickly proved to be one of the most enduring marriages in the film industry. By marrying Gloria, Stewart also embraced an instant family. She had 2 sons from a previous marriage, and Stewart adopted them as his own, taking his role as a stepfather with sincerity and devotion. Those close to the family recalled that he approached fatherhood with the same seriousness and sense of duty that defined much of his life, particularly after his service as a bomber pilot during World War II. He was not a distant or symbolic parent. Instead, he was actively involved, offering guidance, discipline, and affection. Stewart's decision to adopt Gloria's sons spoke volumes about his character. He did not see them as an obligation, but as an integral part of his family and his future. The couple's family life grew even richer with the birth of their biological twin daughters. A joyful event that completed the household Stewart had waited so long to create. Becoming a father later in life only deepened his appreciation for domestic stability and quiet happiness. Stewart often spoke of how much he valued coming home to his wife and children away from the pressures of Hollywood sets and public scrutiny. His home life provided balance and grounding, allowing him to continue his acting career with a renewed sense of purpose and contentment. For decades, James Stewart's personal life appeared to be one of the great mysteries of classic Hollywood. On screen, he embodied sincerity, moral clarity, and emotional restraint, becoming the very image of the American everyman. Off-screen, however, Stewart was intensely private, guarded to a degree that puzzled even close friends. This silence has fueled speculation for years, including long whispered rumors about a discreet relationship with actor Raymond Burr. Rumors that were never acknowledged publicly, yet persistently resurfaced in Hollywood lore. What must be understood first is the era in which Stewart and Burr lived. Old Hollywood was governed by the studio system, where careers were carefully manufactured and fiercely protected. Any deviation from the heterosexual romantic ideal could mean instant professional ruin. For leading men especially, studios enforced rigid expectations, crafting public images that left no room for ambiguity. In this climate, privacy was not merely a personal preference. It was a survival strategy. Stewart was acutely aware of this reality. Though he rarely addressed his personal life directly, he was known to bristle at invasive questions. "I never believed the public was entitled to every corner of a man's life," he once remarked, emphasizing that an actor's work should stand apart from his private affairs. That philosophy guided him throughout his career and helps explain why, if he formed close or unconventional relationships, they would have been carefully shielded from public view. Raymond Burr, like Stewart, also lived behind a carefully constructed facade. Burr's life is now widely understood to have included same-sex relationships, though during his lifetime these were never openly acknowledged. Both men navigated Hollywood with caution, intelligence, and discretion. They shared similar traits: emotional reserve, professional discipline, and an understanding that silence could be a form of protection. In such an environment, companionship, whatever its nature, would have been kept strictly private. The reason for the secrecy becomes clearer when examining the stakes. During the height of Stewart's fame, morality clauses were standard in studio contracts. An accusation alone could end a career overnight. Stewart's wholesome image was central to his success, particularly after his wartime service cemented him as a symbol of integrity and honor. Any scandal, real or imagined, threatened not only his livelihood, but his identity as America's moral compass. Stewart himself hinted at this burden in later years. "People see the characters and think they know the man," he said. "But there's a difference between what you give to the screen and what you keep for yourself." That distinction was crucial. He believed deeply in personal dignity and resisted the idea that fame erased one's right to inner privacy. His late marriage at age 41 only added to speculation, though it ultimately reflected his cautious nature rather than scandal. Stewart waited until he felt certain, choosing a stable family life over Hollywood excess. Yet even after marriage, he maintained strict boundaries between his public and private worlds. Friends often described him as warm but reserved, deeply loyal, and emotionally complex. If there was a secret relationship or simply a profound bond, it would not have been unique in Hollywood's golden age. What set Stewart apart is how successfully he protected his inner life. He understood the cost of honesty in a society not ready to accept difference. "There are times when silence isn't dishonesty," he once observed. "It's simply self-preservation." Today, with greater cultural openness, such stories invite curiosity rather than condemnation. Looking back, the alleged secrecy surrounding James Stewart and Raymond Burr says less about scandal and more about the unforgiving world they inhabited. It reveals how fear shaped lives, how talent was constrained by social rules, and how some of Hollywood's most admired figures survived by mastering discretion. In the end, James Stewart left behind an extraordinary legacy defined by kindness, professionalism, and emotional truth on screen. Whatever he chose to keep hidden was his to protect. As he quietly believed throughout his life, a man should be remembered for the work he gives the world, not the parts of himself he chooses to keep private. In February 1997, Stewart was hospitalized for an irregular heartbeat. On June 25th, a thrombosis formed in his right leg, leading to a pulmonary embolism 1 week later. Stewart died of a heart attack caused by an embolism at the age of 89, surrounded by his children at his home in Beverly Hills on July 2, 1997.